Welcome, my name is Ted Fluehr, Solutions Architect with InSource Solutions, and welcome to our next edition of Xperts on Tap. And today we're going to talk about something called the AVEVA Asset Library. And the AVEVA Asset Library is a set of objects that can be used to quick start a project. So when you start a new project, you have to mimic all the plant devices you have out there in the field. This is a great tool that has a lot of that work already done for you. I was recently working with a systems integrator partner, and we were talking about a new project, and we were talking about the architecture, and he was showing me some of the things he was starting to work on, some objects and what the I/O looks like, and he was showing me, some of the faceplates he was starting to build, and they look great. And I said to him, I said, "That's awesome what you've done, but we have a lot of that content already finished." And I showed him the asset library, and he was floored of how much time this was going to save him, so he wouldn't have to create all these faceplates and define all the I/O and define the graphics. All this stuff is embedded inside that asset library. So how do you get this asset library? So if you just Google AVEVA Asset Library here, you'll see the first thing that comes up there is AVEVA Asset Library, and then you click on that and you'll see what it is. AVEVA Asset Library, there's a download link there, but basically what it is, it's going to have some equipment type assets, motors, pumps, valves, those types of things. There's an example of that valve template. And then instrumentation, flow meters, temperature transmitters, things like that. All these are kind of pre-built for you in this environment that you can just make instances of these templates, drop some graphics on the screen, it shows up some faceplates. So we're going to drill into that a little bit here today. But the foundation of these libraries is basically something called the Object Wizard. So we're going to do a review of what the Object Wizard technology is. It's been around a little bit in system platform, but we'll take a look at that because that's what the Asset Library is built upon. And if you wanted to create your own symbol wizards, you can do that. If you didn't want to use the functionality that comes with the asset library, you could do that also. So let's kind of drill into that a little bit and show you this technology, something called the Object Wizard technology. So if I look at this motor master right here, if I open up this template here, and again it's a template, and this template, here's the I/O that's defined for this template for a typical motor. But you'll see things like running forward, running reverse, start forward, start reverse. It has some amps and fault signals. All motors won't necessarily have all those tags or all those field attributes. And you can see also it has a graphic associated with it. So what we want is the ability to have some choices here when we create this object. Is this a full voltage non-reversing motor? Is this a full voltage reversing motor? Does it have an amp sensor? Does it have variable speed? I know your I/O might have more than this, but this is just an example of a simple motor using this something called the Object Wizard technology. So what you can do is you can kind of go here, and if you wanted to create some new instances, right, some new choices, you would say, I want to add a new choice. So this is a choice, full voltage non-reversing or reversing. Or this is add an option. You click on this and you can add another option here. And then one thing you can do is you can test this and say, okay, when I choose this option, what is going to happen? So if I'm going to put this into a test mode here. So right now, if I look at this, I'm testing a full voltage non-reversing motor. And there's the I/O associated with it. Fault motor control center ready, running feedback, start, stop. And there's the graphic that would show up on my screen here. Well, if I change this to a full voltage reversing motor, you can see some other signals show up here. There's the running forward, running reverse, start forward, start reverse. And then the graphic has these arrow indicators here telling me which way that motor is running. So again, the beauty is that I can build one master template that's going to take advantage of different scenarios that you have in your process. If I turn on my amp sensor here, it's going to add that amp sensor, and the amp sensor shows up here on my graphic. Same thing, if I make this a variable speed motor, it's going to show me the speed feedback I/O, the speed set point, and it's going to show me the indicator on my graphic that there's some speed signals here. So that's the whole gist of this Object Wizard. You kind of build out the I/O for the worst case scenario, and then you add choices and options to that. And then you can kind of pick that. When you make an instance of this template, you can go pick those different variables here and determine which way you want to go here. Another thing to make this work is you can see we turned on these different layers here inside the graphic. So if I go edit this graphic, something that's been around in system platform and graphics for a while is this thing called a symbol wizard. So that's also what we have to do. We have to go define over here the different types of motors. So basically we're layering different graphic options, just like you may have a layer inside of AutoCAD, and add these different options, whether you want these amp signals turned on and off. So this symbol has to have some work done on it to make it compatible with the object wizard. And you can see here's the different layers, right? There's that amp signal is a layer, the variable speed attributes here is a layer. So when you choose those options, you're turning on different layers within system platform. So let's just go take a look at this. If we want to go make, the whole idea of this, if we want to go make some instances of these, so I'm going to check this template back in. So now if I say I want to go here, I want to make an instance of this motor, I say new instance of this motor, it's going to take me and give me an instance of this motor. I double click on it. And I'm going to say, okay, this is where I make my choices. This is going to be a full voltage reversing motor. I'll just leave that as default. So I'm going to make another one of these. So this is another instance of this motor. Just going to make motor master number 3. So let's say this motor master is going to be a reversing motor. So basically I say here, okay, this is a reversing motor. It's going to turn on some different I/O. We'll save that one, check that in. And we'll make one more of these guys. So I say new instance of this. And I click on this motor here. And I'm going to go and turn on some other options. I'll make this a reversing motor. I'm going to turn on my amps and turn on this. So it's going to give me all the I/O I have here. So, there's how you would have, different motors, different types of motors for that type of attribute there. So let's say when we want to go to my graphics and embed them in there. So if I open up a graphic, or you could do this, in InTouch if you like. If I go to a graphic and let's say I want to embed those graphics into motor. So there's I got to go find my instances. So if I go find my instances of those motors that I just created, motor master 1, well, there's that graphic, right? If I go find the instance for motor master 3, right, there's the one that's variable speed. It's going to have the speed indicators on it. If I go to motor 4, it's going to have my speed signals, my amps signals, and my speed feedback. So you can see at the object wizard level, it's also affecting my graphics when I drop that on there. So that's the beauty of these object wizards, to be able to do these kinds of things. So let's move on to the asset library that we're here to talk about today, and we'll show you what that's all about and show you some examples of that. So the asset library is basically, it's a set of objects that are pre-built for us. So I'm going to go to my derivation view, and I'm going to go up to my instruments here, and I'm going to go to view. I'm going to synchronize my views and find those. So if I look up here, here is that library of symbols that we get. I'll drag this over to the middle of the screen so you can see that. So this is the asset library. So you can see there's things like an alarm, digital alarm condition, equipment assets such as agitators and pumps and screws and turbines and fans and blowers. This is example of that. So if I open up this, let's say if I open up a pump object here. So this pump object is basically those symbol wizards on steroids that we just looked at, right? So all those symbol wizards I was looking at before, but here, look at all these different choices and options now that I have, right? And this is where it's going to determine what kind of device it is. Is it a pump? Is it a blower? It's an option here. Just like in that last object wizard I put out there, is it a single speed? Is it a variable speed? And it's going to pick different I/O, right? If I put this thing into test mode, is this single speed, variable speed? It's going to change my I/O associated with that, right? So these are all the different choices and options you have. There's a lot more than we just showed. Does it have feedback, for the on-off states, right? Is there a drive output? Is this a motor operated, is this a pump that has feedback from the process? Is there interlocks that I want to show on my faceplate? Is there an out of service? Do I want to historize this to my historian? Is there current associated with this and amps? So you can choose these different options, and then when you're doing that, there's things like faceplates that are built in. And I think this is the real time saver here, that all these faceplates are built for you. So when you go drop the graphic onto the screen and you click on it, it can pop up the faceplate. But here is also, the actual graphic that you can use. And you can have different graphics, right? So there's a screw feeder, there's a pump type thing. So these are all the different symbols that are embedded in here for that blower, right? Where's the one that looks like a blower? This guy right here. So you can drop that on the screen. So this is already pre-wired, so when you click on that asset on your development environment, you'll see that information, and it's automatically kind of pre-wired to this asset. And I'll show you some of these when we go to the live mode. So that's an example of a pump asset, or a equipment asset. So if I go down to my instrument assets, I click here, and you can see I have things like flow levels and P&ID controllers and pressure transmitters and temperature transmitters. So if I go look at my flow instrument here, again, this is using that symbol wizard technology, and it's taking it to the highest degree here, because there's a lot of different choices and options here that you can select. So here you go. Is this just an analog input? Is this a P&ID controller that's going to have some tuning parameters? What type of instrument is this? And then, is there scaling feedback? Is it a PID? Is there set point feedback? Is there automatic manual control and cascades if you want to put a P&ID loop into a cascade mode? Does it have limit alarms, right? I can define the limit alarms. I can just go check, yes, this has limit alarms. And I can go define what those limit alarms are, right? What's my high limits, my low limits? Am I using rated change alarms? Am I using deviation alarms? So all the alarm conditions that we have in the system platform are carried through in this wizard option, right? Is it historized? Do I want to historize this information in my story? And I just check a box here at the instrumentation level here. So all kinds of different selections you have. Is it a PID control? Is there some simulation involved here? And then again, just like we talked about before, it has these pre-built faceplates. And this is what that systems integrator I was talking to you about was floored by, because he was starting to build all these, and it's got a lot of functionality already built into this symbol wizard technology and faceplate mode. So this is the actual situational awareness symbol that you would choose to put that on a screen. And it's going to have a different symbol, whether it's a pressure transmitter or a temperature transmitter. So there is just a lot of built-in content in these assets library here that you can use to help save you some time. Right, so that's the basics of it. If I also go here, I can see that there's other types of valve assets, and you can see there's two-way valves, three-way valves, all kinds of different valves, motor-operated valves. So if I just go, to a two-way solenoid valve, we'll take a look at that and see that information, and you'll see all the, again, different wizard options that you have in the system. So if I see all the, you determine what type of valve it is. Is it a motor-operated valve? Does it have auto mode, hand mode? Do I have limit switches? The feedback coming from the field, yes or no? All kinds of different options in here. Do I have the ability to have operator commands, right? Open command, open close commands within those faceplates. So is it view only, or is it information that I'm going to display to my operator? Again, here's a faceplate used to actually drive this and see that information on the screen. So that's the basics behind the scenes of objects, of object wizards and the asset library. So then what you do is you take those, and then you can go make instances of those. So if I go, I'm going to reset my layout here. And so here's some things I mimicked up for a demo recently, and it's using this asset library, right? So here is, I'm showing these ingot temperatures, right? So there's a temperature attribute here that I'm using, there's a flow indication here, right? So all this information is built from that asset library. So you can kind of model your plant here. There's something called a caster station. I'm looking at a pump, a valve, a motorized operator valve. And then if I go here, I'm using some of that instrumentation to bring that information into the system. So there's different temperatures that I'm bringing into the system, right? So here I'm expanding this, and this is ingot temperatures and levels and flows. All this information that I modeled up inside a system platform is using that asset library. So I just went and basically made an instance of those and tied them to here. So let's go look at these live in action once I deploy them to my graphics. So if I'm looking at, say, my OMI application here, so here's the symbols that come along with those assets, right? So here's a cooling water pump and a valve. So these are all pre-built symbols embedded in that asset library. I literally just go browse to my instance and drop them on my screen. And then if I click, on this, it's going to show me that faceplate that we saw in development mode. So I can see here's some information about that motorized operated valve. Here I can put this at my solenoid valve, and here's the commands here to open and close that valve and some feedback associated with that. If I look at this cool water pump, right, this is where I can put it into auto or hand mode, start and stop that device here, right? So all that information is there. If I click advanced, out of the box, if I check the box and said this thing has an amp signal, that amps will show up onto my my screen here. This is a variable speed drive here, so it's giving me some feedback of the actual output, and it's showing me the actual speed of that. So this is just out of the box functionality. I drug that down to my instance and drop this onto a screen, and when I click on it, it shows up this faceplate information. So great tools. So if I go over here, look at this level indicator, it's going to give me that same type of information, a little bit of a faceplate information, showing me some trends, and I can go change the time frame of this trend if I want. If I want to go look at a time frame, look at 5 minutes or 30 minutes, I can go change that. So all these trends are built into this Object Wizard technology. Here's an example of a P&ID loop, showing me the output of the controller, the set point, and the actual process variable coming back in, and showing me that in a trend control. And if there's any alarm conditions associated with it, I'll see that information also. So here's a flow indicator here. This is a temperature transmitter. One of the beauties of these tools is also the ability to do something called an alarm border animation. So if I set an alarm condition here, so I'm going to set a high alarm, say down here at 33. Whoops, did have to log into this to make sure that I can write. So showing off our security, log that in. So now I'm going to go try to change that set point on this guy to give it into an alarm condition. So I'm right at 44. I'm going to put that high alarm, say down at 35, just to trigger an alarm condition. And you can see, so built into these faceplates is something called that alarm border animation. So it's showing up on my faceplate. It shows up on where my asset is on the actual screen. So it really is going to get the operator's attention when that condition occurs. I'll set that to a high alarm here. Let's go put that at, say, 38 condition here. And that's a different level of alarm, so that's showing a different color and showing that alarm border animation at a different level. So some great functionality that's built into the asset library. It comes along with these faceplates, the alarm functionality, the trending, all that functionality is just built in. So I just make an instance of that template, drop it onto my IDE, and then go to my graphics and go click and say I want to connect to that into this graphics. One of the things also with shown here in OMI, that alarm border animation, if I go up, say, one level to this caster station, you can see that alarm border animation, I can put that at my high level graphic and show that information going on there. So the other thing with OMI is if I'm sitting here at a high level and I want to look at my alarm grid down here, if I just double click on that, it's going to automatically take me to the place where that alarm condition is occurring. I can click on that, I can see that information, and if I go click on the actual faceplate, it's telling me, what that alarm condition is. So, this is a great set of tools that you can have, the great set of libraries that we can go bring that information into your system and help you get your projects up and running very quickly. The other thing about the asset library, it does come with a manual. So when you go do that download from that website, there's a manual here that you can use to help you understand what's going on and how to use these different objects. It shows you all the different types of assets we have here. It tells you what the I/O is, tells you all the graphics that are embedded in here. So it's a great tool. So when I was doing integration projects, I wish I had things like this over the years. Talking to that one integrator partner of ours, he was really floored with all the functionality that we had in here, and hopefully you get something out of this. So if you have any questions, please contact me at the email address on the screen, but really appreciate you joining us for this session, and stay tuned for more sessions coming up in the future. Thanks again.